Nyadvadyantikamaatmanah Manasa dharayamasu Vaikunta charanam bhujam Te sadhu krita sarvarta Nyadvadyantikamaatmanah Manasa dharayamasu Vaikunta charanam bhujam. Would anyone like to repeat? Vaikuntam Te, all of them, Sadhu Krita, having performed everything worthy of a saint, Sarva Artaha, that which includes everything worthy, Nyatva, knowing it well, Adyantikam, the ultimate, Atmanaha, of the living being, Manasa, within the mind, Dharayam, Asuhu, sustained, Vaikunta, the Lord of the spiritual sky, Charana Ambujam, the lotus feet. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Please repeat the translation. They all had performed all the principles of religion, and as a result, rightly decided that the lotus feet of the Lord Sri Krishna are the supreme goal of all. Therefore, they meditated upon His feet without interruption. Please hear the purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 7:28, the Lord says that only those who have done pious deeds in previous lives and have become freed from the results of all impious acts can concentrate upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. The Pandavas, not only in this life, but also in their previous lives, had always performed the supreme pious work, and thus they are ever free from all the reactions of impious work. It is quite reasonable, therefore, that they concentrated their minds upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. According to Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha principles are accepted by persons who are not free from the results of impious action. Such persons affected with the contaminations of the above four principles cannot at once accept the lotus feet of the Lord in the spiritual sky. The Vaikuntha world is situated far beyond the material sky. The material sky is under the management of Durga Devi, or the material energy of the Lord. But the Vaikuntha world is managed by the personal energy of the Lord. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaure Tvishe Namaha Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripaha Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is a very important chapter in Bhagavatam because it speaks about how the Pandavas are retiring. Retirement is a very difficult thing to do in this material world. Those of us who are working can't wait to retire. Those who retire feel that they should go back to work. The duality of this material world is such that when we speak of retirement in the material world, it is also filled with anxiety. But the Pandavas here did not simply retire. If you read the chapter's title is very instructive. They retire timely. So there is a time for everything. And that is why very often we think that we are in control of many things. But we also understand from Bhagavatam that Krishna in the form of time actually controls us. We may think that we have enough time to do everything. But sometimes we are perplexed when we want to do something and we are not given an opportunity, so to speak. When that happens, we should understand that the time to do that was not timely. And that is why the Pandavas' retirement is considered timely, because they did not do it on the grounds of speculation. Very often you'll find that you hit a roadblock in your spiritual life when you want to perform an action which is speculative. And if you have been a devotee in Krishna consciousness long enough, Krishna is very kind, that sometimes by the force and power of time, he prevents us from doing things which we think are actually beneficial for us. Sometimes our mind gives us favorable arguments why we should do something and why we should not do something. But because unlike the Pandavas, we are not guided by proper bona fide religious principles. And sometimes we don't take the instructions of our spiritual masters and Prabhupada seriously. The result is whatever that we do ends up being very untimely. And when that happens, you find the result of untimely actions in Krishna consciousness is that we become very agitated in our minds. The Pandavas here did not retire with agitation. Bhagavatam tells us that the Pandavas retired with great peace. Jai Radha Gopinath Ki. So this is a very important point that we should remember. The reason why the Pandavas could retire in a timely fashion is because they were completely surrendered to the wishes of Krishna. They saw the hand of Krishna at every junction of their life. They did not turn to Krishna in times that were very good and forgot him in times that were very bad, or vice versa. At all junctions of their life, we find evidence in Mahabharata, we find evidence in Bhagavatam that they never forgot Krishna. And their meditation upon Krishna, as the translation of the verse tells us, was therefore without interruption. Which is why when we approach Krishna without material motivation, Krishna gives us the benediction to worship him in an uninterrupted fashion. So whenever our devotional service becomes interrupted, it is a very good sign that our motivation is not proper. Instead of blaming the world, the circumstances, the management, the people, those around us, we should introspect on our own motives. Our motives are not correct, and that is why there is interruption. This is true in all features of Bhagavatam. And since Bhagavatam is our Shastra, then there is no doubt that it is true. So in this verse you find that they all had performed all the principles of religion, and as a result, they rightly decided. So they here actually refers to the younger brothers of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Because before this we find Yudhishthira Maharaj had decided previously, I think it was in the 40th verse, he decided that he would become disinterested and unattached to everything. So because of that, he became very disinterested in the material world. So two words are very important to describe this moment when Yudhishthira Maharaj leaves the world. Bhagavatam describes it as disinterested, and Bhagavatam describes it as unattached. And actually, you find that this kind of disinterest, this kind of detachment is not done in a very artificial fashion. This is very important. Sometimes when we come to Krishna consciousness, in our enthusiasm or in the beginning of our spiritual life, artificially we make attempts to renounce many things. And sometimes our families are affected. I know of so many devotees, who took up Krishna consciousness and then decided that they would come home and tell their wives and children that I am very detached from you. Or that, you don't belong to me and I don't belong to you. And instead of introducing Krishna consciousness in a positive way, they actually disrupt so many people's lives. So that is not the meaning of becoming detached. Yudhishthira Maharaj did not disrupt anyone's life when he retired timely. That's why there is a time for everything. And that is why when he did that, his younger brothers also followed him. It's very important. So in Bhagavatam, in the 3rd canto, 5th chapter, 16th verse, this point of being unattached and becoming detached from the material world is described in one very important word that Prabhupada uses. And that word is indifferent. Indifferent. When a devotee becomes indifferent to the material world, it is not considered to be a negative quality. Being indifferent doesn't mean that we neglect our duties. We must be very careful about that. Because while Bharat Maharaj, while Ambarish Maharaj, while Janak Maharaj, and even the Pandavas were present and performing their duties, Bhagavatam makes it very clear that they were performing them very immaculately. But even while they were performing them immaculately, they were indifferent to the results of such actions. This is a very important point. So even though they were not wearing the saffron robes of a sannyasi, to all intents and purposes, because they were indifferent to the results of what they performed, only performing it for the satisfaction of Krishna, naturally they became indifferent to the world. So this is how we must cultivate indifference. So indifference in the material world has a very different connotation. But in Bhagavatam, it has a very deep meaning. So if you read 3, 5, 16, very nicely, the prayers of the Devatas are there. If you ever want to study about the greatness of the lotus feet of the Lord, then look at the prayers of the Devatas in the 3rd canto, 5th chapter. Because in the 5th chapter, there are so many verses there where the Devatas are only concentrating on the lotus feet of Krishna. So it's a very nice verse for us to meditate on. So they pray very nicely. Sa shraddha danasya vivardhamana virakti manyatra karoti pumsaha hare padanu smriti nirvitasya samasta dukkha shudate. The translation is very nice. So the Devatas say, for one who is very anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics of Krishna, then what happens? Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference to all other things. So this is the formula on how the Pandavas retired timely. They retired timely because, as Prabhupada says in the purport, not only were they performing very pious activities in this life, but even in previous lives and the lives before, the Pandavas were eternally dedicated to Krishna. And because always they were dedicated to Krishna, they were therefore always anxiously engaged in hearing about him. Anxiety, is always in the material world. And if we are not careful, the moment we leave this beautiful mandir, if we are not careful, anxiety catches us. If we are not careful, it can also catch us while we are in the temple. To the extent that we are surrendered to Krishna, to that extent material anxiety does not touch us. But here, the spiritual anxiety is considered very good. When you are very anxious to come to see Radha Gopinath for Mangala Arati, that is a good sign. When you're very anxious, Jai Radha Gopinath ki. When you're very anxious to come and hear Bhagavatam, when you're anxious to take darshan of Srila Prabhupada and take association of the devotees, that anxiety is good anxiety. That anxiety doesn't increase your cholesterol, your blood pressure. It doesn't give you anything. It doesn't. And even if that anxiety causes you blood pressure and you have to leave your body, at least you leave remembering Krishna. So there's no harm to it, After all, we have to leave. Better we are anxious about Krishna than we are anxious about Durga Devi. Because in the purport, Prabhupada says that there are two categories of living in this world. You can either live under the external energy of Krishna, which is Durga, or you can come under the internal energy of Krishna, which is actually completely spiritual. So the Pandavas, they lived their life completely under the shelter of Krishna. So material energy did not touch them. And this verse explains to us how they behaved. They were always anxious to engage constantly in hearing the topics of Krishna. Notice the word constantly. Constantly is very important. But in Bhagavatam, constantly also means consistently. And consistently also means regularly. And regularly also means always. Because you can say, I'm very regular to come to take darshan of Radha Gopinath. Meaning to say, I'm regular, meaning I have a set schedule. I come once a year. Technically speaking, that's regular. But that's not the intent of Bhagavatam. That's not the intent of Bhagavatam. The intent of Bhagavatam is Shrunavatam Shraddhaya Nityam. This is a verse found in 285 of Srimad Bhagavatam. And there Shukadev Goswami says Shrunavatam Shraddhaya. Shrunavatam means always to hear, hearing. Shrunavatam Shraddhaya. Shraddhaya means not just faith. We know Shraddha as faith. But if you read 285 and you read the word-to-word transliteration, Prabhupada translates Shraddhaya to mean with earnestness. In other words, when we come to Krishna with enthusiasm and earnestness, then we are truly anxious to hear about him. And those who want to hear about him, what happens to them? Krishna Katha has the effect of gradually increasing our indifference towards all other things. So it is a natural process. It is not something artificially imposed. We cannot artificially induce it also. And it comes based on the qualification of our character. Look at the Pandavas. An entire life that they led, they saw Krishna in everything they did. Even when they were banished and exiled, they never blamed Krishna. Just imagine if we were in their position. We would have thought, that since Krishna was all the time with us, how could he put us in such tragedy that we should be exiled for 13 years? It's not possible. Because we, as devotees, if we are not purified in our consciousness, we have this sense of entitlement. We come to devotional service, when we come to the temple, we believe that we are entitled to certain privileges. And this is the rascaldom of the mind. Because the mind thinks that the moment I perform devotional service, all these privileges must come. Just like you get a credit card and you get privileges if you use it. But this is not a credit card. Our only credit is our behavior. That is the only credit we have. And the Pandavas qualified themselves by their credit. The credit of their behavior. Yudhishthira Maharaj wanted nothing from Krishna. He only saw the hand of Krishna in everything he did. And when he realized now that there was no need for him to continue being here, he was not attached to his kingdom. They fought a very powerful Mahabharat war. And if after fighting the war, the normal warriors would feel that they are entitled now to eternally keep the kingdom that they have won. But the Pandavas retired from the kingdom. Because their reason for fighting was only to please Krishna. They had no value for the war if not for Krishna. So we should introspect about why we come to devotional service. If we come to devotional service because we want some kind of entitlement, then that entitlement falls under the 4 categories that are being spoken about in the purport. That means we are looking for dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And Prabhupada quotes Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in this verse, in the purport, to say that those who are running after these 4, actually they don't know the real principles of religion. They don't know the real aim of life. In fact, by running after these 4, they are stopping the progress towards the lotus feet of Krishna. So our anxiety should not be for dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, because they automatically come in the course of our living in this world. Dharma without Krishna is always relative. One person's dharma is another person's adharma. In one part of the world, something is very dharmic. In another part of the world, it is not very dharmic. Artha, if it is not used for Krishna, it actually drags us down. If we have wealth and it is not used for Krishna, then it is not wealth anymore. It actually becomes a great chain that binds us to the world. Kama, we cannot use kama for Krishna. The only way we can ever transform kama, lust, is actually to be engaged in the service of Krishna. If we are engaged in the service of Krishna, then this kama, which we want always for our own sense gratification, will gradually transform itself into trying to please Krishna and pleasing the devotees. And moksha, nanaka prishtam, nacha parameshtam, na sarva bhaumam, na rasadipatyam, na yoga siddhi rapunar bhavamva, samanjasatva virahaya kangshe. In the 6th canto, 9th chapter, towards the last 4 verses of the 9th chapter, Vritrasur sings this beautiful prayer. It's the 3rd last prayer in that chapter. And he says very nicely that, my dear Lord Krishna, I do not desire to be king of this world. I don't desire to be lord of the upper worlds or the lower worlds. I don't desire for any other kind of wealth in this world. I don't desire to become a great yogi or to have siddhi. I don't even desire liberation. I don't want any of these if I do not have an opportunity to serve your lotus feet. This is the mood of a pure devotee. This is the mood of the Pandavas. The Pandavas rejected all material things in a timely manner. Rejection is the cousin to retirement, isn't it? When you learn to reject something which has no value in spiritual life, you're automatically retiring from it. And that is how all these devotees led their lives. Rite ritam yad pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani. So in 2nd canto, 9th chapter, I think it's the 33rd verse, one of the Chatushlokas of Bhagavatam, Krishna tells Brahma very nicely, "Oh Brahma, please know one thing. Anything in this material world that appears to have a lot of value, if it is not somehow or another related to me, actually it has no value." This is a good principle to live by, Prabhus and Matajis. This is how the Pandavas survived in this material world. They used this principle in Krishna consciousness. Anything that appears valuable, this sound system is very valuable. But if it is not used for Krishna, it will drag us down. Our phones cost quite a bit. But if we don't use it for Krishna, somehow or another it will drag us down. And if we have our wealth and we don't use it for Krishna, it will drag us down. If we have this propensity for sense enjoyment, but we don't channel it for the enjoyment of Krishna, it will drag us down. If we desire for liberation from this material world, but we don't have any service to do for Krishna, then the devotees even reject liberation. Because liberation stands like a maidservant at the doorstep to a devotee who performs unmotivated and uninterrupted pure devotional service. It is a byproduct of bhakti. We don't have to worry about liberation. We don't have to. That is why Prabhupada's way and Rupa Goswami's way is that we don't stress on liberation. And that is why you find here the chapter is not titled, The Pandavas Liberate Timely. It is retirement. Retirement from material objects. It's a very important point for us to know. And so, 3:5:16 finally tells us that when we constantly remember the lotus feet of Hari, just in the way the Pandavas did, then this remembrance of Krishna will vanquish an ocean of misery. How nicely it is stated there. This is why it is important for us to follow Yudhishthir Maharaj. And that is why the word they is here. The brothers, the rest of the Pandavas who saw Yudhishthira Maharaj becoming indifferent to the material world, what did they do? They also decided to follow in the footsteps of their brother, because he was a great devotee of the Lord. And our mood is, we follow in the footsteps of the great devotees. We don't imitate them. We can't imitate Haridas Thakur, but we can follow in his footsteps. We can never imitate Srila Prabhupada, but how Prabhupada conducted his life, we should follow. We can never imitate our spiritual masters, but how they live their lives, we should follow in that spirit. So the Pandavas, they are so good that they were always giving association to each other. And that's what we must do as a family of devotees. We may be struggling in our devotional service, but if we help each other, our struggles lighten. And that's why the Pandavas retired together. They fought together, they ate together, they remembered Krishna together, and they retired together. Why? Because when the leader of the Pandavas decided to detach himself from the material world, Bhagavatam tells us, they also followed in the footsteps of Yudhishthir Maharaj. Why? Because Yudhishthir Maharaj and the Pandavas, they knew the goal of life. It is stated in the purport, they knew the goal of life. And the goal of life is not this dharma or that dharma. It is stated nicely in the first canto, second chapter, I think it's the 6th verse, Savai pumsam paro dharmo, yathor bhakti radok saje, ahaituki apratihata, yayatma suprasidati. The last line is very important, because the last line tells us, yayatma suprasidati. There is only one way in which we can satisfy the self. And that way is to perform unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service unto the Lord. So there are many dharmas in this world, but the devotees are only interested in one dharma, and that dharma is known as Savai Pumsam Paro Dharma. It is the highest of all dharmas. And this dharma is Yathor Bhaktir Adok Saje. Somehow or another, we have to render devotional service to the Supreme Lord. That is our only business. So we are not in the business of coming to the temple to do anything else except to perform devotional service. The moment we know that we are coming here to perform devotional service, then everything else, our relationships with each other, our services, the challenges that we face, they will all fall in place. When the goal is clear, the mind is not disturbed. If you look at the purport of Bhagavad Gita, 266, I think, Prabhupada writes very nicely that the mind becomes disturbed when it has no clear goal of life. But the moment the mind has a clear goal of life, it is not disturbed. So if you really want to curb the mind and become peaceful, then be clear about the goal of life. And very often, when we come to the temple gives us the perfect opportunity to be clear about the goal of life. And it becomes the duty of every devotee seated here to remind the devotee next to him or her about what the goal of life is. Otherwise, very quickly we can forget. The goal of life is not that we are here and we have prasadam. I mean, that's a side goal. It's a good goal, not a problem. But the real goal is that we want to render unmotivated and therefore uninterrupted devotional service. Some people ask, which one comes first? If we perform uninterrupted devotional service, then it is unmotivated, or unmotivated, it is then uninterrupted. But Prabhupada makes it clear in the purport of 6 canto, 16 chapter, 34th verse. If you ever want to be very clear about that, then 126 of Bhagavatam should be read with the purport of 6:16:34. Because in 6:16:34, Prabhupada says that you can only have uninterrupted devotional service if your motivation to perform the devotional service is correct. And what is correct? To please Krishna. If you want to please Krishna and please the devotees, and perform devotional service in that mood, that means you are not here for an entitlement. I perform devotional service, therefore devotees should behave with me in this way. I perform devotional service, therefore Radha Gopinath must reciprocate in this way. When you do that, the devotional service is motivated. The result is, it will become interrupted. How will it become interrupted? Your mind will tell you, maybe I should stop performing services because this devotee was like that with me. This devotee did not respect me. This devotee spoke like that to me. And this is how the mind concocts. The mind gives you the favorable arguments to interrupt your own devotional service. And then we blame everyone. Because that's another feature of the mind, by the way. The mind loves to blame everyone else except ourselves. Everyone is the reason why I'm not in the temple, except myself. I'm all right. In this way, how can we perform devotional service? We will become very disturbed. So the Pandavas were very clear. They were very clear that they had only one goal. And because they performed devotional service in this manner, two things happened to them. That's why this chapter is there. Vasudeve Bhagavate Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahaitukam. This verse is very important. In this verse, I think this is the verse that is 126, I think. Yeah, I think this is 126. Is it? 127, no? Okay, 127. So in this verse, it is nicely stated that when one performs devotional service, and mind you, now devotional service is ahaituki apratihata. When we perform it without motivation, and there is no interruption, then two things come out of devotional service very naturally. One, causeless knowledge will come into our hearts. Causeless knowledge means knowledge without motivation and without cause. In this material world, when you have a cause, that means you have a motive. But when causeless knowledge comes, it means it is transcendental knowledge. This is the knowledge that will take you across the ocean of birth and death. So automatically, knowledge is revealed in the heart of a devotee who is truly dedicated to Krishna. Like the Pandavas. They were completely surrendered to Krishna. So when Yudhishthira Maharaj decided to retire and the brothers followed, they did it not on the basis of artificial renunciation. They did it on the basis of causeless knowledge. And the second thing that comes is renunciation. Renunciation becomes very automatic. A devotee naturally learns to renounce. Actually, renouncing on a gross level is easy. We have renounced eating meat, fish, eggs, no onion, no garlic. That's all right now. We have renounced illicit connections. We've renounced gambling. We've renounced intoxication. That is all right. But the challenge for devotees moving in devotional service is whether we renounce pride, whether we renounce this need for name and fame, whether we renounce this desire to criticize. These areas become the key points in our devotional service. But Vasudeve Bhagavati, if we perform devotional service to Vasudev and we perform it ahaituki apratihata, then we become naturally renounced. And the result is yayatma suprasidati. The Atma becomes very peaceful, very satisfied. See, we've been sitting here maybe for about half an hour, but all of us are not anxious. We are not anxious. No one is feeling envy also. No one is looking at each other. I'm looking at all of you. Nobody has looked at each other. No one is seeing each other like we do in a wedding, for example. When we go for weddings, we all are looking, oh, what are you wearing? What am I wearing? And we all have social talk, And I don't know about you, but every time you go for a social function, somehow or another, either you come back disturbed, or your wife comes back disturbed, or your husband comes back disturbed, or your children come back disturbed. And it's over the most trivial things. Oh, he said hello to the person next to me, but he ignored me. They were all together in one social group, and I felt very left out. They were talking about upgrading their house, and why don't we upgrade ours? We become very disturbed. But Bhagavatam tells us, Yatra idyante katham ristas trishnayaha prasammo yataha nirvaira sarva bhuteshu nodvega yatra kaschana. In the 4th canto, 30th chapter, the Prachetas, they say something very nice. They observe something very nice. They say that when devotees come together in a yatra, yatra idyante, And they speak about Krishna, Katha Amristas. This is what we do in Bhagavatam class. This is the genius and the mercy of Prabhupada to give us Bhagavatam. In the assembly of devotees remembering Krishna, like the Pandavas did, what happens? 3 things happen. Trishnayaha prasammo yataha. Whatever dissatisfaction and hankering you have in your heart, it is not present when we hear about Krishna. Isn't it true? There is no hankering in the heart. Maybe you're hungry. You may hanker for some prasadam. But that's transcendental. At least it is offered to Krishna. But apart from that, no one hankers for anything when you hear Krishna, automatically. Second thing, there is no envy. Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu. We don't have envy in our hearts when we hear about Krishna. In fact, it goes out of the window. We are so pleased to hear about Krishna. We don't know why, but somehow hearing about Krishna is very nice. If you hear the katha of the person next to you, then after 10 minutes you can't tolerate already. You can't take it. And if you tell your katha to the person, after 10 minutes he will give you an excuse and he will go also. But now we are all sitting for Bhagavatam, no one is finding an excuse to leave. Because Krishna katha is really peaceful. It is yayatma suprasidati. Only Krishna katha can satisfy the self. And the third thing that happens to us when we hear Krishna katha is also what happened to the Pandavas. Notvega yatra kaschana. Udvega means fear. Na udvega means no fear. So when you come and hear about Krishna, you develop fearlessness in your heart. We become very courageous. Courageous to do what? Courageous to face this material world. The courage to retire at the right time from all the things that we are very attached to. Very attached to. And that is what the Pandavas are teaching us. And this was not the result of just simply waking up one morning and becoming Krishna conscious. No. It was the result of a lifetime of dedication to Krishna. And even previous lifetime of dedication to Krishna. And that is why Prabhupada quotes the verse 728. Because 728 is a very nice verse, The word in 728 which is very important is the word dridhavrataha. Yesham tu antagatam papam jnanam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrataha. So Prabhupada says here that the Lord says that only those who have done pious deeds in previous lives and have become freed from the results of all impious acts can concentrate upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. In other words, Prabhupada is telling us that if you want to approach Krishna, we must qualify ourselves. We must qualify ourselves. In material world, if you want to become doctor, you can't just become a doctor. You have to qualify yourself. So if in material world we have to become qualified, Prabhupada says how much more in the spiritual world we must become qualified. But we don't become qualified on the basis of our birth, our parentage, our material education, no. Krishna doesn't look at all of that. But Krishna looks at qualification on the basis of our behavior. Not even on how many shlokas I know or how many mantras I've memorized. Even parrots can recite Mahamantra. It's not difficult. But the important thing is, are we acting on the pages of Bhagavatam? Are we translating Bhagavatam into behavior? Bhagavatam is B. Behavior is also B. What are we doing with Bhagavatam? If after all the class that we speak about, we get off the Vyasasan and we are not behaving ourselves, then obviously we are not acting on Bhagavatam. So this important thing is, the Pandavas, they lived the life of Bhagavatam. That's why automatically, without separate endeavor, because of their transcendental knowledge, they could retire. And they retired in a very timely way. So as long as we behave in such a way that we are running after sense gratification, then the goal of life is polluted. Please keep that in mind. Nunam pramattam kurute vikarma yad indriya pritaya apripnoti nasadu manye yata admanoyam ashannapi kleshada ashadehaha. I think this is 554 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Very nicely, Rishabdev is telling his sons that as long as you think that sense gratification is the aim of life, then you will always be engaged in sinful activities. It's a very easy formula. Not a formula to adopt, but a formula to avoid. right? Some formulas you adopt. This one you don't. It says that as long as your goal of life is to enjoy yourself separately from Krishna, then that sense gratification will cause you to perform sinful activities. When we come to the temple, we should not come to just gratify our senses. The higher principle to come to the temple is to please the senses of the Lord. Then whatever that we do, whether we are cleaning the bathroom or we are in kirtan, it becomes extremely relishable. Otherwise, what will happen is that we will say, why am I cleaning the bathroom and he's doing kirtan? When that happens, then the motivation is actually sense gratification. It is subtle, but it will grow. So even when we do kirtan, we should ask ourselves, why am I doing kirtan? I'm doing kirtan to glorify Krishna. That is the key. The whole point of coming to the temple is to glorify Krishna, not to glorify ourselves. And when we perform a service, we should not wait for glorification from others. When we do that, we will never retire timely. We'll always be attached, not to Radha Gopinath, but to the glorification that comes to us when we serve Radha Gopinath. There is a vast and distinct difference. And that is how we pollute the aim of life. So the Pandavas were very careful with this. And that is why whatever they did, they immediately retired from it. So their retirement was not today. Their retirement was daily. And this principle is given in Bhagavad Gita 5.10. It is nicely stated there, Brahmani adhaya karmani. Very nicely Krishna says that the devotee is one who performs an activity, karmani, but it is performed in satisfaction of Brahmani. Brahmani means Krishna. And when you perform it, after performing it, you will do one thing, adhaya. Adhaya Prabhupada translates as resigned. Such a nice point. Therefore, every time we perform an activity for Krishna, we first sign up the employment contract with Krishna. Once we have finished the activity, we should immediately retire from that. And the result all goes to Krishna. If we linger, then we want the results. But if we retire from it and say, Krishna, this is yours, then it is a timely retirement. And we are not caught. We become free actually. That's why the best devotees of the Lord are those who perform so much services, but they are completely free of them. There is a saying that Radhanath Maharaj said, I remember. He said the busiest devotees are those who have the most time. The busiest devotees are those who have the most time. Because they are busy doing work for Krishna, but they don't hang around waiting for the results. The moment they have performed the service for Krishna, they are very peaceful. And they go on to perform another service for Krishna. They don't linger and wait and see what comes and whether someone says this is nice or that is not nice. They move on to another service for Krishna. That's why when the Pandavas went into exile, they saw the hand of Krishna. When they came out of exile and they became rulers of this entire world after Mahabharata, they also saw the hand of Krishna. When Krishna decided to leave this world, they also decided why to stay if Krishna is not here. It has no value without Krishna. And they also saw the hand of Krishna. And this is how they also retired. But they did all this based on one quality, dhrida vrataha, determination. They were determined that they were only here to serve Krishna. They were not here to serve their senses. And if you read the purport of 728 of Bhagavad Gita, you will find towards the end of the purport, Prabhupada says that devotees become devotees when they start by performing pious activities. It's true, 4 kinds of persons come to Krishna by surrendering to Krishna and they are considered pious. And pious means that we follow the regulatory principles that Krishna gives us. We don't say we are above them. That's why Prabhupada very kindly established sadhana bhakti as our road to Krishna. Whatever we do, Prabhus, Matajis, we should never neglect our sadhana. Our sadhana should never be taken for granted. Our chanting of crowns to Krishna should be done lovingly. It should be done with our hearts. When we study Bhagavatam, it must be done with the heart. When we do deity dressing, it must be done with the heart. When we deal with devotees, it must be done with the heart. If you read the appearance of Krishna, we're just 1 week away after Janmashtami, when you read the appearance of Krishna, you'll find in the 10th canto that Krishna first appeared in the mind of Vasudeva, and then entered into his heart. Then Vasudev initiated Devaki by passing on to her Krishna, and Krishna appeared in the mind of Devaki and entered into the heart of Devaki. And Prabhupada quotes Veera Raghava Pandit, who's one of the great acharyas in our line, to say, therefore, Krishna consciousness is a heart-to-heart transaction. Such a nice point. It is a heart-to-heart transaction, meaning whatever we do, we put all in all that we have for the pleasure of Krishna. If Krishna wants to please us after that, that's all right. If he doesn't want, that's also all right. It's up to him. In that way, we may be living in this world, but we have retired in a timely fashion. We have actually retired in a very timely fashion. And that is why Prabhupada in 728, and we end with this point, Prabhupada in 728 tells us that once we have performed pious activities and done devotional service, this devotional service becomes solidified. Our determination becomes solidified on the basis of association with pure devotees. And that is why we must associate with pure devotees. Someone may say, who is the pure devotee here? Where is the pure devotee here? Srila Prabhupada is the pure devotee. And therefore, if we perform any service to Srila Prabhupada, we are growing in devotional service. If we read and study Srila Prabhupada's purports very scrutinizingly, very lovingly, then every day we are having the association of pure devotees. One time Prabhupada was asked also in a conversation that, Prabhupada, who is a pure devotee here? And Prabhupada said, rascal, except for you, everyone is pure devotee. Prabhupada was telling us that our lenses should also be different. We should look at everyone to say and genuinely feel that we can learn from this devotee. This devotee is much better to me actually. Just by understanding in our heart that devotees around us are so powerful and precious, therefore we become purified. So we don't have to see anything negative. If we are with devotional service, everything becomes positive. We can learn from every devotee. And in that way, we are taking association of them. In that way, real devotional service begins. And in that way, we will be able to meditate upon the feet of Krishna without interruption. See how nice. Therefore, they meditated upon his feet without interruption. Deyam sada paribhavagnam abhishtadoham tirthaspadam siva virinchinutam sharanyam bhrityatitam pranatapala bhavadipotam vande mahapurushate charanaravindam. Since we are on the lotus feet, it's good to end by remembering the lotus feet of Krishna. This famous verse is from the 11th canto, 5th chapter, 33rd verse, 11.5.33. If ever we want to establish Mahaprabhu as non-different from Krishna, then Brahmaji used two verses from Bhagavatam. And these two verses predict Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming. One is 11.5.33 and one is the verse before that, 11.5.32. 11.5.33 says that Krishna's lotus feet are the only feet that are suitable for us to cross this ocean. They are the only suitable boat that can make us cross this ocean. This lotus feet is so powerful that if you take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, then even if you desire material things, Krishna will give you that which is really needed for you. And that is devotional service. So if you may be running after material things, but his lotus feet is so kind that they give you bhakti. You don't want it, but even then Krishna gives it to you. How often we have resisted devotional service, only you know, isn't it? How often we have tried to find excuses why I shouldn't come, why I shouldn't wake up, but still Krishna pushes you on your face and say, you please come, somehow or other. This is Krishna. And then the lotus feet is actually the place where all the great devatas like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, they are coming to take shelter of. Why? Because it is Sharanyam. Sharanyam means it is the only place which is worthy of shelter. And then it is stated the lotus feet is so kind that even if someone bows before Krishna, bows before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they become so pleased that even by bowing, they actually grant you devotional service. They give you the bliss of devotional service. And this lotus feet is the only place which relieves the distress of all the devotees anywhere in the world. To this lotus feet, we offer our respectful, humble obeisances. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Kori Vaishravrinda ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande. Are there any questions, any comments? Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
If one is experiencing incorrect motivation and therefore lacking continuous Krishna consciousness, are there any particular activities that individual can engage in such to correct that incorrect motivation?
Very nice point. Two activities are very important, Prabhu. The first is to take association of an advanced devotee, because that will help correct us very quickly. But in order for us to take that association, we should also be submissive, and we should be open in our heart to explain that we have this issue with us. So when a devotee becomes honest and understands that his motivations are taking him away from the services or disrupting his services, then he should, in confidence, speak to a devotee whom he is like-minded with or inspired by, and he should take association of that devotee. And he should spend time doing service with that devotee. And in that way, he will become purified and enthused very quickly. Simultaneously, he should increase the quality of his chanting. And he should spend more time studying the scriptures such as Bhagavatam. If you do both these things simultaneously, a great advancement of devotional service is there. And while you're doing all this, there's also menial service that should be done. This example is given by King Prataparudra in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He wanted very much to take darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Mahaprabhu so many times refused to see him. But because he had the association of Nityananda Prabhu, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and all the other devotees, that sadhu sangha caused him to become encouraged when he should become discouraged. That sadhu sangha kept him up and made him focus and determined to serve Krishna. Then on the day of Rath Yatra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing, and then the king came. And when the cart was just about to move, Prataparudra from his heart took a broom and he swept the road in front of the cart so that the road would be clean. This is the first recorded history of a king sweeping before the Rath. Today, sometimes when we take the broom and we sweep, the connotation is, I must be the guest of honor, that's why I'm sweeping. It's totally different. But when Prataparudra came, there was no motivation that, oh, I'm the VIP, so give me a broom and I'll sweep. It wasn't like that. He swept. And when he swept, the devotees thought, my God, a king sweeping the floor. It was amazing. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recorded that activity of Prataparudra, and inwardly he became very pleased. So Prabhupada writes, when one performs menial service on the platform of Bhagavatam, one attracts the attention of the Lord. But even then, Mahaprabhu did not show him externally. The final straw came when Mahaprabhu danced and danced after Rath Yatra and became very ecstatic and went to the grove to rest. At that point of time, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramananda Rai and Nityananda Prabhu all told Prataparudra, now you change from the clothes of the king and wear the clothes of a mendicant. Go and sit in front of Mahaprabhu and take his lotus feet. He's still very much in ecstasy, so he won't know who is there. Then massage his feet, perform menial service, but at the same time, you chant beautiful shlokas from Bhagavatam. And that's what he did. He sat down, he took Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. Mahaprabhu did not reject, and before anything could happen, he started chanting the Gopi Gita. Tava katha amritam tapta jivanam kavi biriditam kalmasapaham shravana mangalam shrimadatatam bhuvi granantiye burida janaha atitiyad bhavan ahnikananam truti yugayate tvam apashyatam kutila kuntalam shrimukam chate jada udikshitam pakshmakridrisham. So he just sang like this. And when he sang this way, Mahaprabhu thought, This is very nice. So he said, continue and continue and continue. And in that way, when he finished, Mahaprabhu opened his eyes and then he realized who it was. And he embraced Prataparudra. So when you study that episode, Prabhu, what did he do? He took Sadhu Sangha, he performed menial service, and he studied and recited Bhagavatam. If you do these three things at a point when you think that there are disruptions in your spiritual life, by the guarantee of Bhagavatam and Sastras, we will become happy again. We will become reconstituted in Krishna consciousness. And we will retire very timely from material attachments. Is that all right, Prabhu? Thank you very much for your time. And I wish you all the best. Yes, Prabhu. Do we have time for one more? Okay, fine. Yeah.
Just question on like Pandavas, you said like they're still coming, doing devotion service in previous life and they always think about Krishna. Like just from my understanding, like when Arjuna went from the exile and he went to take his go from Draupadi and Yudhishthira were there.
Yes.
So the 1 year that he was on exile, he actually married one of the princesses on the way, and then when he went to Dwaraka, he was attracted to Subhadra because he heard about Subhadra from Subhadra.
Yeah.
So
That was the year of marriages for Arjuna, isn't it?
yeah. So in the description it says about Arjuna was like as mendicant care and Subhadra was serving him. So how do we connect that they were constantly thinking about Krishna in those times?
Yes.
Yeah, so I couldn't understand the thought.
You see, Prabhu, it's a very nice question. When devotees constantly remember Krishna, at the same time, Prabhu, simultaneously, they continue living their lives. They perform obligations. Arjuna was a Kshatriya. So by Kshatriya code, if he found a princess very noble, very attractive, he could give her protection. But you and I can't do that, you see. So he was in that ashram where he could perform it very well. But because he was always absorbed in Krishna's remembrance, any of his activities did not cause him to deviate from remembering Krishna. Sometimes people ask, is it really possible in this material world? It is. If you chant 16 good quality rounds in the morning before you go to work, and you do nice study of Bhagavatam for even 15-20 minutes, and you just even chant Samsaradava if you don't have time for a full arati at home, it is my experience that when you go to work and you're performing your work very diligently, somehow or another by Krishna's mercy, at the back of your mind and your consciousness, you're always keenly aware of Krishna. It is something to be experienced, but it comes on the basis of good sadhana. So the devotees were performing so many expert activities. You find description of Ambrish Maharaj ruling the world, and yet always remembering Krishna. So it can be done simultaneously, but it depends on the mercy of Krishna. Because we ourselves cannot do it, Prabhu. If we artificially try to do it, we'll create a mess. But if we perform sadhana very nicely, then sadhana has a way of adjusting our life in such a way that while we are performing our activities, Krishna protects our consciousness. That is why it is an international society for Krishna consciousness. The more we become conscious of Krishna, the more our other activities are guided by him. So even when Arjuna was performing heroic activities or any activities, Krishna was always never far away. After all, Subhadra was Krishna's sister. And it is stated in Bhagavatam that so close was Arjuna with Krishna as a friend, that if supposing he saw a very beautiful princess passing by, he would turn to Krishna and say, Krishna, what do you think of her? You think, she's suitable for me. It's something that friends do, But he could do it because in every juncture of his life, nothing was hidden from Krishna.